Chapter 412. You want a little smooch. Kakuzu slowly opened his eyes and immediately started surveying his surrounding. The more he looked around, the deeper the bewilderment in his facial expression got. The last thing he remembered was putting the seal Hinata gave him on himself. He assumed it would seal away his chakra, but that assumption was clearly wrong. He glanced at the shadows in the room to verify that he had been unconscious for some time and continued looking around. When he started looking around, the first thing he noticed was the two people sitting in front of him. Yuna was leisurely sitting on a couch while flirting with Hinata, who was sitting on her lap. Additionally, Hinata would occasionally throw a smug glance at one of the room's corners. Kakuzu noticed that and followed Hinata's glances, seeing another woman kneeling on the ground with her nose in the corner of the room. She had violet hair with a tinge of red in it, wore an oversized trench coat, and had a sign on her back that read, "I caused a lot of property damage, so I'm getting punished." Kakuzu ignored the weird picture and continued surveying, noticing another woman kneeling in another corner in the same position. She had long crimson hair and was wearing a maid uniform. Just like the first woman, there was a sign on her back, but this one read, "I lost control, so I'm getting punished." Unlike the first woman, she constantly fidgeted around while occasionally suppressing a moan. Kakuzu decided that he wanted to have nothing to do with whatever was going on and continued looking around while completely ignoring the suspicious buzzing noise coming from that corner. When he woke up, he noticed two additional people sitting together with him. One of them was Conan, who he obviously knew, but the other one was a shriveled-up old man with a blindfold, who Kakuzu had never seen before. Additionally, there was a meek and uncertain expression on Conan's face which was rather uncharacteristic for her, while the old man seemed to be drowning in regret and despair. What kind of torture did Yuna put that old man through for him to look like this? What's with all those black rods sticking out of him? It seems she is even more ruthless than I anticipated. While Kakuzu was coming to his own conclusions regarding the current situation, which went really correct, but not entirely wrong either, Conan had no idea what she was supposed to do now. Before she could understand what was going on, Yuna had appeared between Nagata and her and teleported them out of their previous hideout and into a building that was undoubtedly part of the Uzumaki compound. Then, Yuna allowed them to clean themselves and change clothes since Conan's clothes were partially burned from her own explosions, while Nagata was covered in his own blood. Then they were led towards the room they were currently in by a random Uzumaki and found the current situation in front of them. Considering the person escorting them only had the strength of a weak jonin, Conan considered knocking him out and fleeing, but in the end, she didn't dare to. Yuna's facial expression while threatening her with a spanking was burned into her mind, and she would rather not envy Yuna right now. She had entirely accepted that she and Nagata were now at Yuna's mercy and had to wait for her judgment. Although Kakuzu's presence here surprised her a little, she decided not to care about his supposed betrayal. After all, considering he was unconscious when they arrived, he might very well be in the same situation as herself and Nagata. "You did really well, my little Hinata. Such a good girl, Tilda. Hee, praise me more, Tilda." Conan's eyebrow twitched in irritation when she heard Yuna praising Hinata while furiously petting her head, almost causing her to melt on Yuna's lap. This has been going on for 5 minutes now, and at first, Conan thought Yuna would stop after Kakuzu woke up. Apparently, her guess was wrong, and Yuna happily continued spoiling Hinata even after Kakuzu regained consciousness. Conan glanced to her right and saw Nagata incoherently mumbling to himself about getting betrayed and his dream getting crushed. Although she would really like to have a proper conversation with him and help him improve his mood, there was no time for that right now. Additionally, Nagata was in no condition to break through the awkward air, so she glanced towards her left instead. Kakuzu noticed Conan's glance and completely ignored it, while intensely staring at a random point on the wall and erasing his presence. Although he didn't say anything, his thoughts about the current situation were relatively clear. "You want me to interrupt that monster's flirting? Good luck with that. I'm an old man and have the patience to endure this awkwardness for hours." Let's see who cracks first, a little girl like you or an old man like me. Conan could more or less guess what Kakuzu was thinking and gritted her teeth in anger. You want to outlast my patience? Very well, let's see who cracks first. A few minutes later, Conan's face was twitching like crazy, while she had to constantly clench and unclench her fist to not burst into anger. She threw a hate-filled gaze at Kakuzu, who seemed to have found a spot on the wall that was even more interesting than the previous one and was currently scrutinizing it with interest. Hee, how about a little smooch, Hinata tilde? No, not in front of other people, hee tilde. By now, the duo wasn't just cuddling, and Yuna slowly but surely started attacking Hinata while Hinata was resisting Yuna's advances. When Conan saw that Yuna's hand slowly started roaming towards inappropriate places, she could no longer endure the situation and started speaking with a slightly flushed face. Cough, could you? Oh? You want a little smooch as well? The moment that question left Yuna's mouth, Hinata's gaze snapped towards Conan, causing a shiver to go through her spine. And no, I just wanted to know why you brought us here. Only now did Yuna seem to remember the presence of the other people in the room as her gaze wandered from Hinata to the three people sitting in front of her. At first, her gaze lingered on Kakuzu for a short moment before seemingly thinking of something and shrugging her shoulders, and then wandered to Conan and Nagata. Well, what can I say? You two were so much fun to bully, I just had to take you home. Chapter 413, You Want Some Eyes? Conan's facial expression stiffened when she heard Yuna's reasoning for bringing Nagata and her to the Uzumaki compound. Be because you had so much fun bullying us. Yuna gave Conan a sagely nod before seemingly remembering something else. Oh, and I wanted to see your reaction to finding out that you have been manipulated almost your whole life. What? While Conan exclaimed in surprise due to Yuna's words, even Nagata managed to regain some resemblance of clarity. And manipulated? What do you mean? It's a simple story. There is this alien that got sealed by the sage of the sixth path, who was her son, but before she got sealed, she separated a part of her will to do her bidding. That part of her will is called Zetsu, and he was manipulating Madara, who was manipulating Obada, who was manipulating you into believing he was Madara, so Zetsu could gather all the bijou and inject them into the alien's husk that is sealed in the moon that can be summoned with the Rinnegan. See? Simple. Silence reigned inside the room after Yuna dumped all the info she had on the trio. While Kakuzu had not even the slightest clue what he just heard, Nagata and Conan at least knew about the so-called husk that the Rinnegan could summon. After all, Nagata summoned such a husk and even started putting all the bijou inside of it. Nagata swallowed hard after digesting all of Yuna's words and started speaking again. So if the Gedomazo statue absorbs all the bijou, the seal on the alien will be broken. A frown appeared on Yuna's face, and after a short moment of pondering, she shook her head. No, just the husk isn't enough. It needs the husk, her will in the form of Zetsu, and a body strong enough to contain these two things. Well, I stopped paying attention to the details when it got too convoluted, but these three things are necessary. I think. Probably. Naturally, none of the three people in front of her were convinced, while Hinata could only roll her eyes at Yuna, forgetting half the story while only remembering what was necessary. Nagata slumped over when he realized for just how long he had been manipulated and what kinds of things he had done to chase after a plan that wasn't feasible from the start. What am I even supposed to do now? Most of my power is gone. My goal has disappeared. My life no longer has a purpose, so I might as well just die. Yuna shook her head at that statement, which Nagata couldn't see for obvious reasons. If you no longer have a goal, then just find a new one. It might have been through AFCKED up way, but he wanted to bring peace to this world. Does the ambition of reaching such a grand goal really just crumble away after one major setback? Nagata could only smile wryly when she heard Yuna's question. Then what am I supposed to do? I'm blind. Most of my strength is gone. Most of my life force is gone as well. Heck, I can't even walk by myself. Yuna casually waved all of Nagado's concerns away like they weren't a big deal. Ma, no worries. First of all, about your lifespan, don't we have someone with a life-extending technique in this very room? Kakuzu flinched as all eyes in the room zeroed in on him. Well, all eyes except for Anka, Karen, and Nagado's, for obvious reasons. Why do you think I would be willing to teach someone my technique? I mean, you are working for me from today on, so I think it's rather reasonable. Why would I be working for you? MHH. Oh right, I haven't even told you about your luck, huh? You're hired as a mercenary. You will mainly teach people how to fight. Congratulations. Why do you think I would do that? Because my Uzumaki client is filthy rich, and I put a teleper. Okay, I accept. As soon as Yuna said that the Uzumaki client was rich, Kakuzu's eyes shined with greed for a short moment, and he immediately accepted before Yuna could finish speaking. Okay, I knew he was greedy, but I didn't expect it to be to this extent. Yuna shrugged her shoulders and focused on Nagata, who was still looking towards Kakuzu in bewilderment. Well, there you go. Life force secured. That should probably fix your walking problem and allow you to regain your strength as well. As for being blind, we can just get you a new pair of eyes, so it's no big deal. See, can eyes really be exchanged so easily? Yuna couldn't help but give Nagato a weirded-out look when he asked that question. You do realize that the Rinnegan was given to you in that way, right? What? I didn't awaken it. No, you didn't. The Rinnegan is the evolved form of the Sharingan, and I'm pretty sure you aren't an Uchiha. Well, you occasionally act like one, but I blame that on the eyes. The original owner of these eyes is Madara Uchiha. Yet again, Nagata went into a daze as another massive secret was revealed to him, making him almost numb to all the ways he had been tricked. Is it fine to cavalierly reveal information like that to us? That question was asked by Conan, who grew a little concerned due to all the information Yuna was giving to them seemingly without reason. However, Yuna only dismissively shrugged her shoulders. No need to worry your cute little head about that. Just because a piece of information is hard to get doesn't mean it is useful. I'm telling this to Nagata since it directly involves him. I could tell him everything privately, but this stuff isn't important enough for me to do so. Conan nodded in understanding while pretending not to see Hinata, who was now glaring at her due to Yuna calling her cute. Anyway, back to the topic of eyes. Do you have any preferences in regards to the eye color? Well, since you had the Rinnegan for such a long time, maybe you want something more exotic. How about a Sharingan? As Yuna said that, she flicked her wrist, causing a small glass container with 2 crimson eyes with 3 black tomos swimming in them to appear. Chapter 4:14, A New Path. Deafening silence covered the rooms as everyone watched the pair of eyes swimming around in the glass Yuna was holding. Why did the atmosphere suddenly change? She was certainly joking about getting a Sharingan, right? Well, everyone except for Nagata, who still couldn't say. Nagata, she is currently holding up a pair of Sharingan. Huh? While Nagata was shocked by that revelation, a frown appeared on Hinata's face as she looked at the 2 floating eyes. Could you put those away, Yuna? This is a little disgusting. Yuna shrugged her shoulders and hid the pair of eyes away again while thinking about how she acquired them. Well, I found these eyes in one of Sasori's puppets. Although I pretended to crush them in front of Sakura, why would I destroy a decent pair of eyes? Who knows what I could use them for in the future, after all. Hoarder. I prefer calling it being prepared for the future. Oh, okay. And I prefer calling it being a hoarder. Don't think for even a second that I don't know how much garbage you are hiding in those storage seals. Garbage? I will let you know that every item I carry with me is something that I might need in certain situations. Sure, keep telling that to yourself. While Yuna and Kurama were bickering, a spark of ambitions reignited inside Nagado's soul. A Sharingan, the initial form of the Rinnegan. Maybe it's too early to abandon my goal. I still desire peace. This time, I will choose another path. Pain does not bring peace. Obviously, I won't use the 3 methods Yuna mentioned either. I will find my own path. I want a pair of Sharingan. A small smile appeared on Yuna's face when she noticed the change in Nagado's disposition. Oh? Could you tell me why you made that decision? I still desire peace. Although I still have to look for another way to achieve it, I'm confident I will need a lot of power for it. I will take the Sharingan and evolve it to reacquire the Rinnegan. This time, the Rinnegan will truly be mine. Yuna's smile widened as she approvingly nodded her head while everyone else was looking at Nagado like he was crazy. You do realize that that is practically impossible and pretty much insane, right? It does not matter. Whether it is impossible or not does not matter. I will make it possible. Insane. If seeking peace is insane, then I don't mind being called a madman. Nagado's demeanor changed even further as his whole body seemed to radiate determination. I will bring this world peace. Ha ha ha, excellent. That is how it should be. Impossible. That's only because no one has ever succeeded, but will you be the same? Who knows? But why would you give up before even trying? Insane. Yes, only someone insane would try to do the impossible, but so what? Insanity is the first step to accomplishing something great. Yuna's facial expression distorted, giving her an insane vibe. Embrace it, Nagado. Someone who wants to change the world like he cannot possibly be sane. The earlier you accept your true self, the better. Nagado couldn't help but shiver a little when he heard Yuna's speech. Frankly, he never considered himself to be insane, but now that Yuna pointed it out, there were undoubtedly some indicators. Nagado shook his head to get rid of those thoughts. It doesn't matter. Whether sane or not, the only thing that matters is my goal. He was just about to resume speaking when a small snowball materialized in Yuna's hands, which she casually threw at Anko, who was still kneeling in the corner, hitting the back of her head. No substitution. While Nagado had no idea what Yuna meant by that, Anko couldn't help but be bewildered. How the hell did she find out that I considered substituting myself with a clone while she was doing her speech? Can she read my mind? Yes, I can read your mind. Anko couldn't help but flinch when Yuna answered her internal question. Damn it, how did she know what I was thinking? As I said, it's because I can read your mind. Yet again, Anko flinched, causing Yuna to chuckle in amusement. Obviously, she could not read Anko's mind. However, Anko was a relatively straightforward person. After over 3 years of spending a lot of time together, Yuna could more or less guess what she was thinking in certain situations. Although Nagado wasn't entirely sure what was going on, he decided to continue the conversation after Yuna finished talking with whoever she was talking to. I still have a question. Why are you doing this for me? We are pretty much enemies, after all. Why did you spare my life, and why are you willing to go to such lengths to help me? Because I want to snatch your woman. Hush, Kurama. Because I find you interesting. Your huge ambitions are not something anyone can have. Your willingness to do things that even you yourself clearly acknowledge as wrong for the sake of pace is something I can respect. Obviously, I'm not fond of the method itself, but that is beside the point. Nagado pondered Yuna's words for a moment before nodding in acknowledgement. However, don't you want revenge for all the things I have done? I have done a lot of stuff that I am not proud of. I killed a lot of people, some of them even innocent. You don't appear like a forgiving person to me. Yuna shrugged her shoulders in indifference at Nagado's words. I'm certainly not a forgiving person. However, you might have done a lot of things one might consider to be evil, but none of those caused any harm to my people and me. Yes, you attacked the Uzumaki compound, but that attack was repelled without any causalities. Frankly, I should kill you for that attack, but you were just manipulated at the end of the day. Additionally, I deem you to be more valuable alive than dead, outweighing the attack on the Uzumaki Klein compound. As for the offense of trying to kill me, I don't give a shit. As I said, you are more valuable to me alive rather than dead, so I will just overlook that offense. Well, that is only if you managed to regain your determination, which you did. If you didn't, I would have just gotten rid of you and buried you somewhere. Nagato felt a chill go down his spine and could only obediently nod his head. Chapter 415, A Good Candidate. The rest of the day passed peacefully, and Tsunade was currently sitting in her office while surveying the damage. Frankly, there was almost none. No casualties. And not a single person who was heavily wounded. The worst damage was a few collapsed buildings, which, considering Konoha was attacked by multiple S-rank shinobi, was neglectable. Moments later, someone knocked on the door, causing Tsunade to sigh. More work, huh? Let's see what this is about. She was just about to allow the knocker to enter when someone appeared behind. Her first instinct was to attack the person without a moment of hesitation, but Tsunade quickly noticed that the person wasn't moving at all, making it rather unlikely for him to be an assassin. The person had long black hair with blue streaks and was wearing an ANBU-style fox mask, giving Tsunade a relatively good idea of who it was. "What are you doing here, Yuna? Trust me, you will thank me for this one." Tsunade's eyebrow rose due to Yuna's words. She pondered the situation for a moment before shrugging her shoulders. "Fine, whatever. Enter." After Tsunade gave permission, the door opened, revealing an ANBU closely followed by a young man with spiky black hair and black eyes. "Sasuke Uchiha has returned to the village and wanted to meet you, Hokage-sama." Tsunade immediately was annoyed by that. "That's fine and all, but why did you bring him here immediately while wagging your tail like a dog that wants to be praised? I guess a few people still revere the Uchiha clan. How annoying." Although Tsunade heard about his contribution during the battle, she didn't want to bother with that yet, since other things were more important. Well, since he was here anyway, she might as well get this out of the way. "Thank you for informing me about that and directly bringing him here as well." The ANBU flinched when he heard the apparent displeasure in Tsunade's voice. He just realized that by bringing Sasuke here directly, before informing Tsunade, he pretty much ignored Tsunade's opinion on the matter. That, I apologize, Hokage-sama." Tsunade sighed again and waved the ANBU away, causing him to sigh in relief. "Well, what can I do for you, Sasuke Uchiha?" Sasuke eyed the masked woman standing behind Tsunade for a moment before ignoring her and focusing on Tsunade instead. "I want to become part of Konoha's shinobi force again." Tsunade nodded in acknowledgement. After all, she pretty much expected that to be the case. Why else would Sasuke return to Konoha? That is fine. Although you went rogue 3 years ago, there are no reports of you hurting any Konoha shinobi, so allowing you to come back should be no problem. Sasuke nodded in understanding and resumed talking. "Additionally, I killed 2 more members of Akatsuki outside of Konoha." Tsunade's eyebrow rose when Sasuke made that claim. As far as she knew, the only member still left was Zetsu, and the masked man Yuna claims to be Obito. Did Sasuke really kill those 2? She was a little skeptical about that. Well, Yuna still hasn't told her that there were currently 3 Akatsuki members inside the Uzumaki compound, so she could only assume that Zetsu and Obito were the only ones left. "Oh? You did? I assume you have the corpses." Sasuke nodded his head and unfurled a small storage scroll. He put it on the ground, and after injecting some chakra into it, 2 people in Akatsuki robes appeared. Tsunade's eyes widened in surprise when she saw the 2 people. They were Homura Midokado and Koharu Udatane, who previously had a spot as Konoha's elders, but were put into prison for all kinds of different crimes. Tsunade was aware that the duo managed to break out of prison a while ago but did not expect to find them in such a fashion. I found them outside Konoha. Apparently, they helped Akatsuki with the infiltration of Konoha. While Sasuke was looking smug, Tsunade couldn't help but frown. The prison break was already very suspicious, and this whole situation makes it even worse. Would these two really join Akatsuki and help them attack Konoha? How come Sasuke was conveniently in the vicinity when Akatsuki attacked? All of this is very suspicious. And what makes me the most suspicious is definitely Yuna's presence in this very run. What is she plotting, and how much of this whole situation was orchestrated by her? While Tsunade was deep in thought, Yuna leaned forwards and whispered in her ear. High contribution, war hero, hasn't been here for the last 3 years, and a glorious Uchiha. At first, Tsunade had no idea why Yuna was whispering that kind of stuff into her ear, but moments later, everything clicked together as her eyes started shining. I can dump the Hokage position on him. He is still a bit young to do so now, but it's only a matter of a few years, ha ha ha. Meanwhile, Sasuke was becoming more dissatisfied by Tsunade's restrained reaction. He was just about to complain when a massive grin appeared on Tsunade's face. Really outstanding. To think you defeated 3 Akatsuki members by yourself. Truly impressive. Considering your strength, there is no problem with directly promoting you to Jonin. We plan to hold a festival due winning this fight. I plan to give the most significant contributors an award, and as the biggest contributor, you will naturally receive one as well. Sasuke's facial expression immediately filled with arrogance, and he slightly lifted up his head. Tsunade couldn't help but get excited when she saw Sasuke's reaction. Gullible. He's so gullible that I almost feel sorry for him. I need to plan this out properly. I need to keep his contact with Yuna as small as possible and make sure that I always look relaxed when he enters my office. Hee, poor little Uchiha, I hope you will enjoy all the paperwork and the mess Yuna occasionally causes. Sasuke felt a chill go down his spine, causing him to look around in confusion. Weird, what was that? Chapter 416, here he is again. Meanwhile, far away from Konoha, Obito removed the blindfold he had been wearing since yesterday and revealed that his previously empty eye socket now held a ripple pattern purple eye, the Rinnegan. Zetsu frowned in displeasure when he saw that. This might have been a possible solution in the typical case since Obito was almost impossible to capture with his space jutsu. However, Yuna and Naruto both have already proven that they could disable Obito's Kamui, making this whole situation very risky. Frankly, Zetsu wanted to hide away for the next 100 years and await Yuna's death, but had made a rather glaring mistake during the attack that complicated the whole matter. He allowed Konoha to capture Kakuzu instead of finishing him off himself. Zetsu has been watching humanity for quite a while now, and there was something almost all people in positions of high power had in common: they desired a long life to a frankly obsessive degree. Zetsu did not doubt that Yuna would be the same and do everything she could to get Kakuzu's life-prolonging technique out of him, increasing her lifespan even further. If a powerful shinobi didn't die in battle, he could easily reach the age of 100. Obviously, that kind of feat was almost never accomplished. Even if they didn't die in battle, they would certainly carry some injuries due to all the training and fighting and thus would die younger. And Uzumaki had around an extra 20 to 30 years on top of that. However, Yuna wasn't just any Uzumaki, she was the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, cranking her life force up even further. If she had an additional 4 hearts due to Kakuzu's technique, Zetsu didn't even dare to think about how much vitality she would possess. That, on top of the Kyuubi's ridiculous healing factor, would cause her to live for a frankly absurd time span for a human. Zetsu was willing to wait 100 years, but that was his bottom line. Waiting for another 200 or even 300 years was unacceptable in his book, so he decided to take a risk and give Obito the Rinnegan. Meanwhile, Obito marveled at the power he could feel coursing through his body due to his new eye. Unlike Nagata, he was a full-fledged Uchiha, so the Rinnegan had better compatibility with him. Unfortunately, the Rinnegan was simply too powerful, and his body could probably not handle the implementation of both eyes. After somewhat getting used to his new eye, Obito nodded his head and set the following plan into motion. He put a new mask in his face, this one with 2 eye holes, and went through multiple hand seals before slamming both of his hands on the ground. Kuchios, Edo Tensei. Complex markings started spreading from Obito's hands, and moments later, a large stone coffin rose from the ground. As soon as the whole casket was visible, a frown appeared on Obito's face as a mental connection between him and his summon immediately snapped into place. All souls have the desire to return to the Pure Land, and now Obito could partially feel that desire, giving him, a living person, a rather disgusting feeling. This feels horrible. I guess only someone with a heavily mutilated soul, like Orochimaru, can use this jutsu without any discomfort to revive multiple people. The coffin opened, revealing a man with long black hair, pale skin, and golden slitted pupils that made him look like a snake. Kukuka, so that's what it's like to be reanimated, how uncomfortable. Obito heard the man's creepy laughter, causing a frown to appear on his face. I have something for you to do, Orochimaru. Orochimaru eyed the man in front of him with interest as his focus was immediately drawn to his single new eye. Oh Tilda, did you manage to steal one of Pain's eyes? MHH, what was your name again? I don't believe you gave me your name the last time we met. I am Madara Uchiha. Tilda, is that so, Kukuku? Obito's eyebrow twitched in irritation when he realized that Orochimaru clearly didn't believe him but dismissed the matter since it was of no importance. I am starting a war against the shinobi world. I have enough foot soldiers, but I'm missing elite troops. You will provide me with those elite troops through the Edo Tensei. That is impossible. Controlling more than 4 bodies at once is beyond what I can handle. Obito scoffed at that, and moments later, space in front of him seemed to twist as a white humanoid-looking corpse fell to the ground. White Zetsu. A creature that is even more aligned with nature than Hashirama Senju himself. Greed flashed through Orochimaru's eyes when he heard Obito's words. Something like that was probably an even better test subject than Juga, the origin of Orochimaru's curse seal. That certainly is a rather exciting offer. There is a good chance I can do something with this to improve the number I can control. By the way, while I was dead, did someone find out why people close to that monster can absorb natural energy so casually? Obito was slightly taken aback by that question but nonetheless answered Orochimaru's inquiry with a shake of his head. In that case, you wouldn't mind if I use a few of the summons to capture one of them, right? If I had their method, I'm certain I could control even more summons. Obito only shrugged indifferently when he heard that question. I couldn't care less. This war's ultimate goal is capturing the Kyuubi, so taking out the people close to the first is a viable option. Kukuku, very good. I can't wait to pay back the humiliation I received from Enko by thrice the amount. While Obito and Orochimaru were discussing their plan, Zetsu had a deep frown on his face as his gaze lingered on Orochimaru. Orochimaru is a terrible ally. As long as it serves his own agenda, he will backstab whoever he has to. However, his presence might actually be advantageous for me. He is sure to start sniffing around as soon as Obito stops observing him, so maybe I should use that chance to accidentally show him where Madara's real body is hidden. A reanimated Madara should be a useful trump card in the ensuing battle. Chapter 417, A Lost Cause. Currently, Tsunade's whole face was twitching like crazy inside the Hokage office due to the people standing in front of her. First of all, Yuna stood in front of her with her hands in her pockets and a broad smile on her face. Behind her were a man with brown skin and eyes with green irises and no pupils, with the rest of his body covered in clothes, a young woman with straight blue hair and grey eyes, and finally, a blindfolded, haggard-looking man sitting in a wheelchair with red hair. Additionally, upon Yuna's request, all three of them were wearing Akatsuki robes, which irritated Tsunade the most. "Is this a coup?" Yuna chuckled in amusement when she heard Tsunade's question, while the three people behind her started shuffling around uncomfortably. "Well, you should know that I have no interest in the Hokage position, no. You could make one of those three your puppet." "True. In fact, Conan would be pretty good for this kind of position since she can freely control paper." Tsunade went into a slight daze when she heard that. Naturally, she still remembered Conan and her ability to control paper freely. However, she never really associated it with actually doing paperwork and always focused on the combat aspect of the ability. Her eyes turned crimson as her predator-like gaze landed on Conan, causing her to take a step back automatically. "Become my assistant?" "Nope. She is already part of the Uzumaki clan." "Bullshit. There is no way that's true." "It is. She joined my harem." "What?" Naturally, Tsunade, Nagata, and even Conan herself were rather surprised by that revelation. When did I join your harem?" "Just now." "Congratulations." "That's not how it works." Small details." "That's not small." "That's what she said, Tilda." While Yuna was rather satisfied due to finally breaking through Conan's stoic facial expression, and Conan was close to getting an aneurysm, Kakuzu's eyes glossed over as he was blankly staring at nothing. He was currently spacing out and wanted nothing to do with the current conversation. Seeing the chaos in front of her, Tsunade could already feel the ever-lurking Yuna headache making its return, so she took a deep breath and attempted to put the conversation back on track. "Well, Yuna's utterly shameless and arbitrary behavior aside, could someone tell me why I have 3 Akatsuki members standing in my office right now? Especially since I'm pretty sure one of them tried to blow up the Uzumaki compound." Nagato couldn't help but feel slightly awkward when those words left Tsunade's mouth. Well, they were true, so there was nothing he could say to counter them. "Don't be like that, Tsunade. I can put small grudges like that behind me." "No, you can't. You literally destroyed everything Danzo had created throughout his life, dragged his reputation through the dirt, and killed him for targeting Naruto." Yuna shook her head when she heard Tsunade's accusations. "That was an entirely different matter." "How was that different?" "Danzo wanted to get Naruto for his own personal gains. He tried to use Naruto to empower himself. Nagata wanted to capture Naruto for his own skewed vision of peace and was manipulated into doing it. Rather than Danzo, he is more like the civilians manipulated to harm us. And while we are at it, Kakuzu was in there for the money, just like Zabuza was all those years ago, and Conan simply shared Nagato's vision. That is why all 3 of them are still alive. Besides that, Conan is in my harem, so I obviously won't kill her." "I'm not in your harem." "Sure, keep telling that to yourself." While Yuna continued teasing Conan, Tsunade thought about Yuna's words, causing her to frown. All of that might sound nice on paper, but at the end of the day, they are still wanted criminals. I can't allow Konoha to shelter them. Yuna immediately wagged her finger at Tsunade when she said that. Neither of these 3 has an active bounty on them." "Bullshit. There is no way that is possible." Conan aside, Kakuzu has been a bounty hunter and is guaranteed to have a bounty or 2, while Nagato is the leader of the world's most wanted organization. Romigan. As you said, Conan has no bounty. People in a Medicare call her Angel, but outside of AME, she is pretty much unknown. And what do you mean by Nagato is the leader of Akatsuki? Look at him. He is just an old, blind man. The leader of Akatsuki is obviously Madara Uchiha, the masked man. And finally, Kakuzu, how about telling Tsunade about the people that put bounties on you? Kakuzu got out of his daze when Yuna called his name and started a brief contemplation. Well, before my fight with Hinata, at least one of their hearts was technically still alive. As for the others, well, let's just say I like bounty hunting, but I don't like having a bounty on my head. Tsunade couldn't help but groan when she heard those excuses that technically worked but not really. Well, Conan and Nagata would probably be fine, but Kakuzu is giving her a severe headache. Damn it, hasn't that freak lived for almost 100 years? Who knows how many grudges he has piled up in all these years? This is seriously troublesome. Tsunade closed her eyes and started thinking, causing the room to be covered in silence that was only interrupted by a perverted giggle that would occasionally echo through the room that pretty much everyone seemed to ignore. Around 5 minutes later, Tsunade reopened her eyes and looked Yuna in the eyes. You will take responsibility in case something happens. Correct, Tilda? Very well, welcome to Konoha, you three. Conan, Nagata, and Kakuzu couldn't help but be surprised that Tsunade actually allowed them to stay inside Konoha just because Yuna listed up a few technicalities and gave her a guarantee that she would take responsibility. All three has the same thought at the same time. She must trust her quite a lot. Bang! A massive glass bottle was placed on the table, and with a loud pop the cork sealing it closed was removed with a flick of Tsunade's thumb. All right, time to get smashed. Yet again, the trio's thoughts synchronized. She gave up thinking, huh? Tsunade was just about to start chugging when Yuna grabbed the bottle and stopped Tsunade's movement. Wait, there is something else. Damn it, what else can there be? Yuna flicked her wrist, causing a small glass container with 2 Sharingan swimming inside of it to appear. I need you to implant these into Nagata. Tsunade froze when she saw the 2 Sharingans. She looked from the Sharingans back to Yuna and then back to the Sharingans again. The more she did so, the more shocked, angry, and terrified she became. Please tell me you didn't take these from the gullible ID. Cough the next Haka cough Lord Uchiha, the hero of our village. Nah, don't worry. I had these for a while now. Oh, okay. You should have said so sooner. That gave me quite the shock. You want to start the operation right away. She's a lost cause. Chapter 418, New Eyes. Tsunade wasn't the world's best medical man for nothing, and within an hour, Nagata had a fresh pair of eyes in his eye sockets. A while later, back in the Uzumaki compound, Yuna, Conan, and Nagata were sitting in the same room, and Nagata was about to remove the bandage from his freshly acquired eyes. Nagata removed the blindfold and moments later opened his eyes, revealing 2 crimson eyes with 3 tomo in them. So this is what the world looks like through a Sharingan. How are you feeling, Nagata? Is everything okay? Is there any pain or discomfort? Nagata smiled a little at Conan's concerns and shook his head in denial. Everything is fine. However, I can feel that my eyes are constantly draining my chakra. It is not that much, but it would accumulate over time and completely drain me if I were to keep them open constantly. Want me to put a seal on it to cut off the permanent chakra drain? I can make it in a way that you can activate and deactivate it within a split second. Nagata pondered Yuna's offer and nodded his head in acknowledgement. Yuna covered Nagata's eyes with her hands for a short moment before removing them again, revealing a pair of black eyes. After thanking Yuna, Nagata closed his eyes again and reopened them to reveal an activated Sharingan. With this, the first step is done. Well, I have no idea if I will ever be able to regain the Rinnegan, but I won't give up. Yet again, Nagata closed his eyes and sunk deep into his own thoughts. Well, might as well do the first step right away. I might have chosen another path by now, but one thing hasn't changed. Blood started flowing out of the corners of Nagata's eyes. I know pain. Nagata opened his eyes, revealing his freshly evolved Manjikyu Sharingan. It took the form of a red octagram with a black dot in the middle. So, what abilities did you gain? Nagato considered not telling Yuna about it or straight up lying, but he decided not to do so. Despite everything she put him through, Yuna helped him quite a lot as well, so he decided to be truthful to her. My left eye can cast a powerful genjutsu that forces the victim to relive the worst event of their life. That's quite fitting for pain. Nagato ignored the jab and continued speaking. The other one engulfs what I'm looking at in never-melting ice. Oh, reverse Amaterasu. That sounds like it has something to do with me. Nagato nodded his head in acknowledgement. When he realized his new abilities, he came to the same conclusion. One ability represents my past and the other the future you decided to give me. I was your enemy and no one would have said anything if you had killed me, but you decided to give me another chance to fulfill my goal. For that, I am thankful. Don't mention it. Honestly, I would like to give that ice a try, but since that would deteriorate your eyesight, I'm willing to wait until you use it in combat to get a sample. I understand. Thanks again. Meanwhile, Karen was walking through the corridors of the Uzumaki compound in a good mood. It turns out that Yuna was more than willing to reward and punish Karen for her battle against Haydn, which resulted in rather intense night activities and her current good mood. Tilda, it's been a while since my mind was that close to breaking. How dreadful. I can't wait to experience it again, Tilda. A short while later, Karen saw Taiya, who was standing in front of a window and looking through it with a dazed expression, attracting her attention. Yo, Taiya, what are you doing? You look confused. Can I help you somehow? Taiya flinched when Karen started talking to her, but she visibly relaxed when she saw the speaker. Thank God it's not Yuna-sama. No, it's nothing. I'm fine, Karen. Karen's eyebrow rose when Taiya started deflecting her questions. Taiya was usually not the type to bottle stuff up and would normally speak her mind without a filter, so the situation was definitely strange. Come on, you should tell me your problem. Even if I can't help, sharing the issue will at least lighten the burden. Aren't we friends? Taiya rolled her eyes at that last question. Although they've been working together for a while now, and Taiya did consider Karen to be her friend, there were quite a few occasions in which she would vehemently deny even knowing Karen. After thinking about it some more, Taiya decided to tell Karen what had happened. Hisoka asked me for a date. As in, a romantic date between two people who want to start dating and not the let's go shopping together one. MHH. That's all. Isn't that a good thing? I'm not sure. I told her I needed some time to think about it. Huh? Why didn't you accept? I got the feeling that you liked her as well. That's what I'm currently thinking about. I'm not sure what it means to like or love someone. I see. In that case, I'm probably the wrong person to speak to. That actually surprised Taiya a little. After all, it wasn't exactly a secret that Karen loved Yuna. Naturally, Karen saw Taiya's doubts and couldn't help but chuckle about it. I don't love Yuna-sama. Taiya's eyes widened in shock when Karen said that, but Karen's following words cleared her doubt. I'm utterly obsessed with her. As Karen said that, a glint of insanity passed through her eyes as she started hugging her own body and wiggling around. Every moment I spend separated from Yuna-sama is a wasted moment. I love her. I want to be by her side. I want her to mess me up. I want her to make me her toy. I want her to crush my mind. While Karen descended into a madness, Taiya cautiously took a few steps away from her. On the one hand, who knows what the crazy person in front of her will do? On the other, she didn't want any drool flying on her clothes. Well, didn't she say she loved her anyway? Oh well, no point arguing with her when she is in that state, so who cares? Probably something about having surpassed the state of love or something like that. Tayuya shrugged her shoulders and decided to ignore Karen in favor of her own pondering. Well, do I accept the date or not? Do I like Hisoka? Well, it's rather cute how she gets flustered when doing simple stuff like sitting close to me. Makes me want to bald cough or tease her. Oh well, FCK it, I will accept. At the same time, Hisoka was strolling through Konoha in an excellent mood. Well, she didn't agree, but she didn't reject me either, so I will see it as a win for now. After all, if she didn't find me at least likable, she would have rejected me instantly. However, simply not getting rejected was not the real cause for Hisoka's excellent mood. Ha, I'm so happy my ass didn't get Shinra Tenseed yesterday. As someone who knows canon, she obviously knows what happened to Konoha when Pain attacked it. It was blasted to smithereens. I mean, I trust Yuna-sensei, but who would sleep well when they knew that someone with a god complex would drop a nuke on your head soon, even if you have something you think could stop the nuke? A few moments later, Hisoka noticed Tayuya approaching her with a slight smirk and a light blush on her face, resulting in Hisoka smiling as well. Yep, I think today will be a good day as well, Tilda. Chapter 419, A Letter from Kumo-da-Kyo. A few days later, a group of 3 arrived on the outskirts of Konoha. The group leader was a fair-skinned woman with shoulder-length blonde hair, blue eyes, and a stoic facial expression. She was closely followed by a dark-skinned woman with long spiky red hair and amber eyes and a dark-skinned man with short, spiky, white hair and black eyes. These 3 were Samui, Kurui, and Omoi. They were sent to Konoha to deliver a letter to Tsunade. The Hachibai Jinchuriki, Killer Bee, was kidnapped by Akatsuki, so the 4th Raikage wants the 5 Kage to hold a gathering and speak about how to deal with them. Unfortunately, they were neither aware that Killer Bee only faked the kidnapping and was currently traveling around to have fun, nor that most of Akatsuki got defeated a few days ago. All 3 of them were currently looking at Konoha with slightly dazed expressions due to what was presently happening. The whole village was covered with colorful decorations and people were filling up the streets as there appeared to be a village-wide festival going on. And, what bewildered the trio the most, the 5 heads carved into the Hokage mountain all wore colorful party hats. What is going on here? I don't have any information about Konoha having a festival like this. Although Kurui and Omoi heard Samui's question, they had no clue either, so they could only shrug their shoulders. Let's just enter the village for now and deliver the letter. We can just ask a few people for information while we walk. When Omoi heard Kurui's suggestion, he immediately started panicking. Isn't that dangerous? What if our information gathering is seen as spying? And then, when we are questioned, a misunderstanding happens and we are outed as spies. Then, when they try to capture us, a fight starts, ultimately ending in our death. Raikage-sama will hear about our deaths and will then declare war against Konoha, starting another shinobi war. You're overthinking. While Kurui and Omoi were quarreling, Samui approached Konoha's gate with 2 annoyed-looking people sitting next to it. These 2 were Izumo Kamizuki and Kotetsu Heigain. Recently, they have been on gate duty almost every day and were rather annoyed that they couldn't partake in the festival due to their responsibilities. Samui, Kurui, and Omoi felt multiple pairs of eyes on them as they walked towards the gate, which surprised neither of them. They were foreign shinobi, after all, and proudly displayed it with their headbands. Well, it would be more suspicious not to show their affiliation since that would mark them as possible spies. Stop, who are you? When the trio got closer to the gate, the trio stopped walking while Samui took out a letter. We are here on Raikage-sama's order. We must deliver this letter to Hokage-sama. Izumo and Kotetsu both frowned when they heard that. Although Kumo-da-Kyo and Konoha weren't currently at war, they weren't allies either, so the letter could be pretty much everything from a declaration of war to an alliance offer. Either way, this was far above the duo's pay grade, so they could only forward the message to someone higher up the food chain. Izumo was about to fetch someone when he heard a leisurely voice. Sounds interesting. I'll lead them to Tsunade. The duo looked at the source of the voice and immediately had wry expressions on their faces. Surprisingly, a young woman with red hair and blue streaks appeared between the duo without them even noticing. "Yuna-sama, I don't think that is appropriate." "Ma, don't worry about it. A clan leader escorting foreign guests sounds totally acceptable, don't you think?" The duo looked at each other before simply shrugging their shoulders. Even if it didn't, who would blame them for giving in to Yuna's demands? Although they were slightly worried that Yuna might cause an international incident, she usually knew full well how far she could push before she needed to stop. "All right, I leave it to you, Yuna-sama." Meanwhile, Samui, Karui, and Omoi had slightly stiff expressions when an additional person suddenly appeared without them noticing. They realized that if this were an ambush, all three of them would be dead. The trio's expressions became even uglier when they realized who had just offered to guide them. The name Yuna Uzumaki was known in every corner of the elemental nations, so was her flashy appearance and chaotic behavior, hence the trio had no doubts that they were facing the real deal. Moments later, Yuna's gaze landed on the trio, causing them to straighten their backs. "Well, follow me. We are going straight to Tsunade." The trio glanced at each other for a brief moment of silent conversation before following after Yuna. At first, the group moved without talking, but after a few moments of walking, Yuna opened her mouth. "So, I assume this is about the kidnapping of Killer Bay." The trio almost face-planted when Yuna casually revealed what was supposed to be a secret. Although Yuna's knowledge flustered Samui, she couldn't help but ask how Yuna even managed to get that kind of information. How do you know about that?" "About what? The kidnapping or the letter?" Both." "Well, I know about the kidnapping because I have a method of gathering information about Akatsuki, so I got the information that they were extracting the Hachibai from him. As for the letter, that was just a guess." "What? They were extracting the Hachibai? Doesn't that mean that Killer B-sama is dead?" "Nah, Killer B tricked them with a clone. Akatsuki never managed to capture him in the first place." "What?" A chuckle of amusement left Yuna's mouth when she saw the shocked trio. As expected, there is lots of fun to be had with these three tilde. Your evil is showing. Oops, God, is it that up tilde? Then why hasn't he returned to Kumo yet? Where is he? Not sure why he hasn't returned yet, but the last time I got a report about him, he was in the land of hot water, enjoying the hot springs. In no way. So he is just playing around. Instead of answering, Yuna simply shrugged her shoulders, causing the trio to go into another daze. After all, the only reason why they were here in the first place was due to B's kidnapping, making the whole trip pretty much pointless. A few minutes later, Karui managed to reboot her brain as she noticed something else. She pointed at the big building in the distance and started speaking. "Although this is my first time here, that's the Hokage Tower, right? Why does it look like we aren't walking towards it?" Karui's question immediately caused her two companions to look at Yuna suspiciously. However, Yuna only shrugged her shoulders and continued walking. "That's because Tsunade currently isn't inside the Hokage Tower." "Then where is she?" Yuna stopped walking as she made an inviting gesture towards a large gate behind her that was currently bustling with people. "She's right here, inside my Uzumaki clan compound." Chapter 420, The Festivities. The trio shivered in fear when they heard that. As one of the 5 major hidden villages, they naturally had some spies in Konoha and knew about the Uzumaki compound. They especially knew about the failed attempt of Itachi and Kisame to break into it. It was an impenetrable fortress. Rather than a clan compound, it felt more like they had to enter the den of the lion to these 3 people. Naturally, Yuna saw their facial expression and decided to ignore them completely. "Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go." Before any of them could issue a complaint, Yuna told them to continue moving and entered the clan compound, resulting in 3 people with rather ugly expressions following her in. However, as soon as they entered the compound, their expressions visibly relaxed due to the vibrant atmosphere covering the whole area. There were big smiles on everyone's faces as they played all kinds of games and ate all sorts of foods at different stalls spread all over the place while happily chatting with each other. Yuna, could you tell us why the whole village seems to be in such a festive mood? Yuna heard Samui's question and nodded her head in acknowledgement before explaining what was going on. A few days ago, Akatsuki attacked the village, but our forces crushed them. After everything was accounted for and all the wounded were healed, my Uzumaki clan decided to hold a little party. Well, things escalated a little and the party somehow extended to the whole village, turning it into a festival. The trio froze in place when they heard Yuna's explanation. After all, if Killer Bee's kidnapping was their main reason for coming here, the other one was dealing with Akatsuki. Apparently, Konoha had already done the first step with that endeavor as well. See, could I ask how many people attacked? Samui's question actually had two purposes. The obvious one was that she wanted to gather information on how many Akatsuki members attacked and died in the conflict. The other one was to gauge Konoha's strength. The Uzumaki compound is deep inside Konoha, so they had seen quite a bit of Konoha and didn't notice any damaged building at all. If a considerable force attacked Konoha and they managed to defeat them with this little damage, then Konoha was significantly stronger than Samui expected. Yes, I think you can. Silence followed Yuna's words, confusing the trio. After pondering the situation for a short moment, an annoyed expression appeared on Samui's face as she spoke again. How many people did Akatsuki attack Konoha with? Yuna chuckled in amusement at Samui's annoyed facial expression and answered her question. A pity you made the question that specific. I would have loved to mess with you some more and bring up some old war statistics after you asked me how many people attacked Konoha. Anyway, it was 7 people and 6 corpses controlled by one of those 7. 2 fled, 3 switched sides after we kicked their asses, 1 is sealed in my basement, and the last one died. The 6 controlled bodies all got destroyed. The trio looked at Yuna in bewilderment when she finished speaking. They didn't know what to think about the controlled corpses, but they at least knew that all members of Akatsuki were S-rank criminals. That would mean that Konoha had enough strength to defend itself against a force of 7 S-rank criminals while barely being damaged. That was ridiculous. She has to be lying. That was the conclusion Samui immediately came up with. Frankly, she expected Yuna to exaggerate the number of attackers a little to make Konoha look more powerful, but she didn't think she would go that far. The information about 3 of them switching sides especially bothered Samui. There is no way 3 S-rank criminals would conveniently switch sides, and it was even more impossible that the Hokage would allow people like that to remain in the village. Samui had already decided that she would try to gather some information about what really happened if she got a chance to do so. Naturally, Yuna noticed Samui's doubts but wasn't too bothered by it. She only told the truth, and if someone decided to doubt that, it was their problem and not hers. Well, it wasn't the entire truth since not all corpses were destroyed. Yahiko's was still intact. While Samui was coming up with all kinds of plans to find out the truth, a loud gulping sound could be heard from Yuna's direction, attracting her attention. Her eyes bulged as she saw Yuna take a big swig from a bottle that clearly contained alcohol. Fua, that hit the spot. I could almost feel myself getting sober. Naturally, Samui and her 2 companions were bewildered by Yuna suddenly drinking. Why did you suddenly start drinking, Yuna? MHH. What do you mean by start drinking? I have been drinking for 3 days. Huh? Why have you been drinking for 3 days? Ha, it's a festival after all. The festival has been going for 3 days. Wasn't this supposed to be just a party? What can I say? My Uzumaki clan knows how to throw a party. What about sleep? Sleep? I know about the concept. If you have any questions, ask away. While Karui and Omoi had exited the conversation a long time ago, Samui was still trying to somehow understand what was going on. Frankly, she couldn't care less how Yuna spent her last 3 days, but there was one problem with all of this. How in the world did a sleep-deprived, drunk Jinchuriki sneak up on us at the gate? Samui was frantically trying to come up with an excuse for failing to notice Yuna's approach when loud chanting started echoing over the Uzumaki compound. Chug. 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 She looked at the source of the chanting in bewilderment and saw a massive group of people surrounding a stage. On top of the stage, a man with spiky red hair and a woman with long blonde hair were currently chugging a 1-liter container, undoubtedly filled with alcohol. A short moment later, the woman smacked her glass on the table and roared victoriously, causing the crowd to become even louder. Samui looked at that scene and felt that the woman who had just won the drinking contest seemed to be somewhat familiar, which she found rather weird. After all, she knew no one from Konoha. Before she could figure out who the woman was, Yuna interrupted her thoughts. Well, there is Tsunade. Do you want to talk to her now or wait until her next contest is over? Huh? Samui looked at Yuna in confusion as her eyes looked where Yuna was pointing, but no matter how many times she did, her gaze always landed on the woman who had just won the drinking contest. Samui gave the woman another look, and moments later, her eyes bulged and her jaw hit the ground. Why is the Hokage participating in a drinking contest? Well, I mean, she won, so isn't it fine? There is nothing fine about this. Chapter 421, Delivering the Letter. Currently, Samui, Karui, and Omoi had rather stiff expressions as a clearly still drunk Tsunade was glaring at them for interrupting her fun. These 4 people were currently sitting at a table in one of the secured rooms inside the Uzumaki compound while Yuna was sprawled out on a couch in the background. Tsunade-dona, this is rather important. It would be more appropriate to do this in private. Obviously, Samui was hinting at sending Yuna out since she was only supposed to bring them here and not listen in on the conversation. Meh, if you can make her leave, then be my guest. In fact, if you find out how to do it, tell me the method. Naturally, Samui was dumbfounded by that reply. Isn't Tsunade-dona the Hokage? Why doesn't she simply order her to leave? Samui glanced at her 2 companions, but they also had clueless expressions. While she was pondering what to do, there was a knock on the door, and moments later, a woman holding a tray with 4 teacups on it walked into the room and arranged the cups on the table. Thanks, Shizune. Tsunade thanked her assistant and took a sip of tea, causing her to frown. Yuna. Although Tsunade only said her name, Yuna immediately understood what she meant as a small bottle appeared in her hand, which she swiftly threw towards Tsunade. Tsunade caught the bottle, opened it, and casually poured some of its content into the tea, causing Shizune to facepalm. Tsunade-sama, I brought you tea to sober you up. What's the point of mixing alcohol in it? Getting sober slows down my drinking speed. I still have a few challenges left. One of them is my guard captain, he's quite the heavyweight. I will crush him like the others beforehand. A smug expression appeared on Tsunade's face as she took a sip of her tea, making her frown. Yuna, did you give me poison? Yuna got up from her lying position and glanced at the bottle she had just thrown towards Tsunade. Define poison. A liquid toxic enough that if an average human were to drink it, they would either suffer heavily or die. Oh, in that case, yep, that was poison. That exchange felt somewhat familiar. Tsunade nodded her head in understanding and took another sip under the disbelieving eyes of everyone except for Yuna. Surprisingly, it tastes great. I know, right? People always look at me like I'm the weirdo for liking to drink stuff like that. Meanwhile, Samui could only stare at the bizarre exchange that just happened in bewilderment. What in the world is going on here? I knew that Unidono was a very chaotic person from the start, but how come Tsunedono isn't acting much better either? While Samui sank deeper and deeper into a chasm filled with bewilderment and confusion, a deep sigh escaped Shizun's mouth as she decided not to bother with the situation anymore. Poor Tsunade-sama. She is sinking further and further into madness. I really hope she can retire from the Hokage position soon. Moments later, Samui snapped out of her daze because Kurui elbowed her in the side. Cough, Hokage donor, I'm here to deliver a letter personally written by Reikage-sama. Right, hand it over and let me have a look. Samui sighed in relief when the situation returned to something more regular. Tsunade opened the ladder and pulled out the envelope, causing her to frown instantly. Why is this a picture of a naked woman? Is your cage playing a prank on me? Huh? Naturally, the trio was dumbfounded by that. There is no way the fourth Reikage would play a prank during an emergency situation. Well, the emergency was already over, but he didn't know that when he wrote the letter. Before either of them could come up with an explanation, a chakra string was attached to the picture and pulled it out of Tsunade's hand. Sorry, that's mine, Tilda. The picture was leisurely caught by Yuna, who let it disappear into her pocket, before taking out another piece of paper, quickly folding it into a paper airplane and letting it fly towards Tsunade. Here is the real one. Tsunade caught the paper airplane and pondered what had just happened for a short moment before simply nodding her head and starting to read the letter. On the other hand, Samui, Kurui, and Omo were utterly bewildered by what they had just witnessed. Why do you have the letter? Yuna looked at Samui weirdly, like she just asked an especially stupid question. Well, where do you think I got it? I obviously pickpocketed it from you. Although Samui was enraged when Yuna admitted to pickpocketing her, there was another emotion that was more dominant. She was utterly terrified. How did she do that? As far as I remember, she didn't even get close to me while she was guiding us. Was it Jinjutsu? Or maybe a clone? Anta a Jonin. I don't dare to claim that I could win against her in a fight, but I should at least be able to notice her pickpocketing me, no? Well, FCK, apparently not. By the way, I also stole the panties you were wearing while I got the letter. What? Samui subtly checked whether that was the case or not, and sighed in relief when it was not, causing Yuna to chuckle in amusement. Just kidding. I only do that to my harem. Well, I can't really do it to Karen since she rarely wears any panties. While Samui's mental facilities were slowly collapsing, Tsunade finished reading the letter and chuckled in amusement. Well, considering Yuna's preferences, I assume she already told you what we know about Killer Beast's situation and the Akatsuki. Samui snapped out of her contemplation when she heard Tsunade's question and nodded her head. Yes, Unidono had already informed us about that. Still, our mission was to deliver the letter, so we did it despite knowing that the information was outdated. Tsunade nodded her head in agreement, and after a short moment of thinking about the situation, she made a decision. Might as well hold a gathering between Cage anyway. Akatsuki is not done yet, and an alliance between the 5 major villages can only be considered as something positive. Samui nodded her head in agreement. I will deliver your message to Reikage-sama as soon as possible. After saying that, the trio was just about to flee the room when Yuna stopped them, causing the trio to flinch. Yuna took out 3 yellow tokens and tossed them towards the trio. Carry one of these each. You don't want to walk around the Uzumaki compound without one of these. Trust me. The trio shivered when they heard Yuna's words as they remembered the intel Kumo-dakia had gathered about the Uzumaki compound. They had completely forgotten the existence of these tokens. Although it wasn't well known what happened to people who tried to enter without them, it would certainly not be something good. Naturally, Kumo tried to find out how these tokens worked and even got a few low-level ones as samples. However, every attempt to decipher the seals involved would inevitably lead to a cake in the face. Well, the newer ones could shoot pies as well for some reason. So, the trio took the tokens and obediently nodded their heads before quickly fleeing out of the room, making Yuna and Tsunade chuckle in amusement. I assume you put a teleportation mark on the one with the big breasts, Yuna. Obviously. She was the group's leader, after all. Why did you ask? Sure, let's go with that excuse, and I was just curious. After saying that, Tsunade picked up her teacup and took another sip, causing her to nod in approval. Delicious. Chapter 422, Touring the Uzumaki Compound. Samui, Karui, and Omoi were still a little dazed due to the emotional turmoil they had just gone through. They had heard that interacting with Yuna would inevitably lead to some mental damage, but they didn't expect it to be this bad. Worst of all, Tsunade seemed to have adapted to the madness somehow, causing the trio to pity her a little. The three were currently sightseeing inside the Uzumaki compound and couldn't help but be bewildered by all the things that they were seeing. They saw a female Uzumaki aggressively flirting with a blushing Hyuga woman, causing the trio to be a little surprised since they were pretty sure Hyuga were incapable of blushing. They also noticed a big man who looked eerily similar to the demon of the mist happily chatting and drinking with a group of Uzumakis, pretty much confirming the rumor that he was working for the Uzumaki clan now. Ha ha ha, let's have lots of fun today as well, Kurama, Chomai, Isobo. I told you not to say my name so casually, Fu. Yes, Fu, let's make a lot of friends. Lucky number 7 Chomai is ready. Moments after the trio heard this conversation, a rather weird group ran past them, consisting of a young woman with brown skin, followed by a turtle with a long tail and a massive fox. Samui was pretty sure that she had seen the woman before, but she couldn't put her finger on where exactly. She considered looking it up when she was back in Kuma, but quickly dismissed the idea. It's just a random woman running around the Uzumaki compound. I doubt there is anything noteworthy about her. Well, those 2 summons following her was somewhat interesting, but whatever. Now that I think about it, wasn't that 4 voices? How weird. A while later, yet another rumor was confirmed as the trio saw a young man with spiky blonde hair escorting 2 beautiful women around the food stalls with a large smile on his face. So Naruto Uzumaki is really dating 2 women. Maybe they could be his weakness. As that thought appeared in Samui's mind, she met eyes with one of the women and immediately averted her gaze while a shiver went through her spine. Damn, another monster. That should have been Yamanaka, right? Just how many powerhouses is Konoha hiding? Meanwhile, Ino, who just took a little peek at Samui's mind, nodded her head in approval. Good, she wasn't eyeing Naruto. I can't allow Naruto to go down Yuna's path and add more women. Is something wrong, Ino? Nah, everything is fine. Samui and her 2 companions continued their tour while listening to the people's conversations to gather some information about Akatsuki's attack. However, Samui could only shake her head due to all the propaganda she heard. Naturally, she wouldn't believe all the nonsense people were telling each other, nor would she be tricked by whatever propaganda Konoha was telling its citizen. After all, she was a skilled jonin. What a load of nonsense. Yuna knew that the attack was coming and prepared everything beforehand. Yuna used a technique that froze a forest patch outside of Konoha permanently. Yuna defeated 2 and captured another 2 all by herself. The Uzumaki clan's barrier blocked an attack that would have destroyed Konoha. And, the worst offender, all Akatsuki members were defeated or captured in one-on-one combat. Bullshit. Samui couldn't help but click her tongue in annoyance as she continued listening, but she heard the same stories no matter where the trio went. Damn, I wasn't expecting Konoha to be this efficient in spreading false information to their people. Kumo can really learn a thing or 2 from Konoha in that regard. The trio entered a small restaurant called Ichiraka Ramen, which was absolutely brimming with red-headed people, to eat a meal before they continued. After ordering a bowl of miso ramen, Samui continued her thoughts about what was currently happening in Konoha. Considering how biased the information about the battle is towards Yuna and her Uzumaki clan, it is relatively easy to see Tsunade's intentions. She is clearly increasing Yuna's achievement to make it easier for her to take the Hokage position. Although her strength undoubtedly qualifies, I'm a little worried about her chaotic behavior. Rather than Yuna, I would have chosen the more stable Naruto, but I guess that's clan politics for you. Is Naruto really going to teach you a new jutsu, Konohamaru? That's right, Inari. After he teaches me the new jutsu, I will definitely be able to beat you. Haha, now, don't get rowdy, kids. Samui's attention was drawn to a nearby table when she heard the words jutsu and Naruto. 3 people sat at the table, 2 kids that looked like they had just become shinobi, and an old goofy-looking man who was immersed in a book. Although the title of the book read The History of Konoha, Samui had the feeling that the content was actually something else. Wait a moment, Konohamaru. Isn't that the 3rd Hokage grandson? No wonder Naruto is willing to teach him a jutsu. Even if the 3rd is no longer in power, he should still hold quite a bit of political sway. Maybe this is part of the plan to make Yuna Hokage. Meh, I can only speculate, but it's possible. A while later, 3 bowls of steaming hot ramen were placed in front of the trio, and they immediately dug in. Damn, delicious. However, the 3rd's grandson, huh? Should I try something? No, that would be a stupid decision. It's simply too risky, with too little reward. As those thoughts appeared in her mind, the goofy-looking man at the same table looked at Samui for a short moment and gave her a grandfatherly smile and a slight nod before putting his focus back on his book. Despite the seemingly kind gesture, Samui was terrified out of her mind. Just now, she could feel death hovering above her head. She felt like if she had moved a single finger to make her thoughts come true, she would have become a corpse. Terrifying. Who the hell is that weird-looking old man? Just how many powerhouses are hidden in Konoha? Your grandfather really likes history books, Konohamaru. Ainari, you are surprisingly innocent. Huh? What do you mean? Anyway, will you ever stop reading that kind of book, grandfather? No, I don't think I will. Samui almost did a spit take when Konohamaru called the old man grandfather. Damn it. That's the 3rd Hokage. Just now, I considered kidnapping the 3rd Hokage grandson right in front of him. I really have a death wish. Considering how little was heard of him in recent years, some people thought he would be either sick or already dead, but it appears those rumors were false. While Samui was deep in thought, the trio finished their meal with satisfied expressions on their faces. Shit, let's not even talk about being sick. Considering my soul almost left my body with just a gaze, he is obviously still a powerhouse. More importantly, what is with that undignified appearance? Has he lost all his pride as a former Kage? With that thought lingering in her mind, she paid her bill and resumed her tour through the Uzumaki compound.